Hey, everybody, thank you so much for coming back for the Book of Acts study. Super exciting. Today we're going to cover Acts 1, Acts 2. Let's get into who wrote the Book of Acts. That was Luke, also the writer of the Gospel of Luke. We'll see that in Luke 1:3, he was writing to Theophilus. In Acts 1:1, he again writes to Theophilus. So basically, Acts is like a continuation of the book of Luke. So, really, one of the best ways I like to read through the Bible is Matthew, Mark, John, and then I go back to Luke, and then I go right into the book of Acts because it just flows very well as the same writer. God was using the same man to write the same words, and so the flow just seems to be a lot better. Not that there's any wrong way to read the Bible, but it's a seamless transition. Gospel of Luke, straight into Acts. So today we're going to learn, now that we know who wrote the book of Acts, we're going to look at Acts chapter 1, some things we need to be aware of that the apostles of kind of did wrong in Acts chapter 1. And Acts chapter 2, we're going to look at what kind of a church should you be looking for if you're not in a good Bible believing church. What kind of church should you be looking for? Good news, Book of Acts tells us. Acts 1 of 6 through, I'm sorry. Acts 1, 6, and 7 tells us the first apostle mistake. All right. They were looking too much on the physical realm. They wanted Jesus. Now remember, this is after Jesus had already resurrected. He was about to ascend up into heaven. And their first question is in Acts chapter 6, Acts 1, verse 6. When they therefore were come together, they asked of him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom in Israel? They were still looking for that physical deliverance. Physical deliverance won't come for us until death, when our bodies are made glorious, or when Christ returns in the rapture. That's when we are going to have deliverance from this physical body and and all the physical things around us. Look at what he said in Acts 1:7. And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. In other words, don't worry about the physical. We got that part taken care of. I need you to go out, tell others about me. Second mistake they made is in verses 10 and 11, where now they weren't focused on the physical. Now they were too worried, focused on heaven only. It says, and while they look steadfastly, so now Christ has already ascended, when they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, the two men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. In other words, don't worry about looking up. He's coming back down eventually. But until he does, get your heavenly focus down here on earth and start telling others about Jesus. In other words, let's make the main thing the main thing. Two of the main apostles' issues: a physical worry, meaning, please deliver me from this nightmare I'm going through, and a heavenly view without physical work. Stop looking for Jesus and go work for him. He's on the throne. He's coming back. This is what Acts chapter 1 says. Let's get to work for him. That's Acts chapter 1. Acts chapter 2 tells us all about the church you should be looking for. Now, the church actually started in the Gospels. Acts chapter 2 is not the start of the church. All right. I'll do a whole lesson on that. If you have any questions, feel free to hit me up in the comments and I will make sure and get that video out sooner if I need to. But the church started in the Gospels. In Acts, the church is already established. What kind of a church was it? And here I want you to see Acts chapter 2, verse 1. They were all in one accord. Everyone pulling on the same rope, going the same way. Very important. Verses 3 through 13, it had the power of God. A church without the power of God is just a gathering of people that really doesn't accomplish much. We need God influencing us in all that we do. In verses 14 through 40, this church had preaching. You need preaching. You need conviction. Preaching is there to not only teach you the word, but to build us up. to encourage us into what Jesus said, but also to warn us of the things Jesus is teaching us about. That's why you're watching this channel. Growth, that has to come through preaching. Preaching of the word is important. Verse 41, there were conversions. In other words, when the gospel is preached, the lost say, man, I am convicted of my sin. I know I'm a sinner. I need to trust Christ as my only way to heaven. Your church should see conversions commonly, because that's what the church is supposed to do. Verse 41b, right down there in the middle part of that verse, you also see baptisms. Baptism does not save you. You will not go to heaven because you got baptized, but it is a representation of what you just accepted. Meaning, you're in the water, you believe in the death, the burial, full immersion, and the resurrection of Christ when you come out of the water. Baptism is the first command after you get saved. Is it so you can be saved? Absolutely not. It is so that everyone else knows I am a believer in Christ now. I believe in what he did for me. Verse 41c, down to the bottom of that verse. Additions to the church, meaning the church needs to be growing. If the church isn't growing and bringing in new people, meaning God, of course, is going to bring them in, God's going to guide you to the right people to bring others in. That's the whole point. More people need to hear the gospel. More people need to hear the preaching. More people need to grow and go out and reach, you guessed it, more people. And then lastly, verse 42, they studied the Bible. They studied the Bible. So now it's not only about preaching, but now it falls onto you individual. Read through the Bible, take notes, write your own lessons, pray to God for wisdom, see what he opens up to you. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to your pastor or to your deacon. You can comment here in these posts. I'll be happy to help you. But you must study the Bible yourself. God will use you greatly when you know and understand and throw yourself into his word. So, Acts chapter 1, we see what not to do. Don't look at the physical. Don't look at heaven. Just go to work. Work for Jesus until he comes. Acts chapter 2, how do you continue to grow? You got to find the right church. Acts chapter 2 gives us that outline. Find a church that has conversions, that preaches the gospel. Watch God grow you, your family, and your church if you're doing these things. That's Acts 1 and 2. Next week's Acts 3 and 4. Thank you so much. Come on back. If you like this video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe, tell your friends about it. Let's grow the channel to God's glory. Thank you so much. Be blessed this week.